I'm sold. Questions?
Video of the woman who was attacked on the street in Chinatown. We've had a series of incidents where there have kind of been random attacks. I'm curious if you think that the bail law needs to be revisited in any way. Should there be, for example, a dangerous standard? This individual who was arrested had several arrests over the last few months.
You know, I think it is, crime in New York City is a major problem. I have said repeatedly, as you know, we're talking about reopening, reimagining, getting people to come back to New York, back to offices, et cetera. We have all sorts of incentives in economic development. The number one economic development priority is public safety. We can do everything we're doing, new Moynihan train hall, new Penn Station, tourism ads. People have to feel safe. And crime is a major problem in New York City. I don't believe, Zach, there's any one causality. I think the fundamental issue is a relationship issue between the police and the community. Members of the community, the police are frustrated. The police will say that they can't do their job in this environment. Members of the community will say they have issues with trust with the police, and that is the relationship you have to resolve. We're in the middle of mayoral discussions. As a Queens boy who proudly holds on to his accent, my question for every mayoral candidate, if I were a New York City voter, what are you going to do about crime? Specifically. Not, yes, it's a problem, we have to address it. Tell me what you would do. How many police would you put in the subways? Do you believe we need more police on the subways? At one time we had a NYPD person on every train in the system. Would you do that again? How do you restore the trust? Do you hire more police? Do you have fewer police? How would you reform the police department? And how would you restore the relationship where the police feel empowered to do their job and that they can do their job without being attacked? Now, if there are additional suggestions where you need state alterations or modifications, tell me. If New York City said, look, we think the bail law is a problem, that would obviously be a major discussion. If they said the disclosure laws are a problem, or the enforcement laws, or the discipline laws are a problem, you know, I'm open to doing whatever we need to do to facilitate New York City's addressing the crime problem. But New York City has to address the crime problem. You know, it is a city responsibility. Cities, safety, sanitation. I was HUD secretary, and the mayors were my main clients and constituents of HUD. And I did all the mayors' conferences for 8 years. Prime responsibility for a mayor, safety, you run the police, sanitation, a clean city. Safe city and a clean city. Safe city and a clean city. Those are the two fundamentals, right? Fiorello LaGuardia. Everything else, state has involvement. New York City also has education subject to state regulation, but police and sanitation. Keep the city safe, keep the city clean. Homelessness fits in with quality of life, but I think that's the discussion for every mayoral candidate, Zach. And then if they say, we've looked at the numbers, the bail laws are an issue, then tell us how and what. There is no assemblyman or there is no senator who would say, well, we're not going to have a discussion about the bail laws if you believe and have evidence that they are a causation of crime. Of course, that's a conversation you would have.
Reform. You know, there's one bill that would put people back out at age 55 if they've already served 15 years. Some believe, the DAs in particular who are against this, that that's just going to further the problem. It's going to be more people on the street who maybe don't belong on the street.
Well, it depends on what the proposal is. Obviously, the devil's always in the details. But again, it's the same point. Then have the discussion. Then let a New York City mayoral candidate say, this is what I think about bail reform, this is what I think about parole reform, this is what I think about a release of disciplinary records of police officers, these are the changes we want to make, and we want to facilitate that, right? We want a safe New York City, and this is a major problem, and it has been for years. This is not today. We've been talking about this for months. George Floyd was an inflection point nationwide, but there's been a growing tension for years. This is 4, 5, 6, 7 years. The police officers will tell you, and the community members will tell you. And it's not a simple one-fix cure-all. And that's why I think it should be a major topic of the mayoral debate. I would have a debate just on crime, to drill down into the specifics, because there are no conceptual answers to these problems. And too much of the political dialogue now is all at 64,000 feet. Well, I would reform the police. How? How? Will the city council support it? Do you need the city council to support it? Will the union support it? Is it enough for the community members to then restore trust? We should look at bail reform laws. Look at them and what? Change what? And why? But you have to get that specific.
Governor, have you
concerns about getting 12 to 17-year-olds vaccinated? Mayor de Blasio today said starting Friday they're going to put vaccines in city schools. They're starting with 4 in the Bronx. I'm wondering if that's something you think might become a statewide initiative. And also today, Congressman Lee Zeldin asked you to remove the mask mandate for kids in schools. Are you likely to do that either by the end of this school year or in September?
Yeah, it is up to a school district if they want to do vaccines in school. I think it's smart. Many are doing it or are planning to do it. I think it's smart. Everything we can, right? Just do everything you can do. We're doing advertising to 12 to 17, the scholarships for 12 to 17. We're getting celebrities to participate in attracting 12 to 17. So just do everything. On the mask mandate in schools, we follow the CDC guidance, and it's very rare that we differ with the CDC. I have raised before that the mask mandate outside for students seems a little extreme to me, and we're talking to the CDC about it.
Governor, have you used any money from your campaign, or do you plan on using any money from your campaign to pay for any of the legal expenses related to the investigations that you're facing right now?
The state, the way it works is the executive chamber has retained the council, and that is a state expense. It has been in every investigation. So that's where we are now.
There aren't any attorneys that you're paying yourself from your personal funds or through campaign money?
Not at this time.
2 questions. One, will you be watching the mayoral debate tonight, and are you leaning towards any one candidate? And number 2, can you talk about the cyber attack on the MTA?
The mayoral debate is at the same time as the Knicks game? That's a tough choice. This is a big game for the Knicks. I'll be switching channels, but I'll catch up with the mayoral debate. And what was your second question, I'm sorry?
My second question was about the cyber attack on the MTA. Can you discuss it and what's being done, any details on it?
Yeah, I don't want to give any more details than have been released at this point. I want to make sure that I don't do anything that would impede the investigation that the MTA is doing.
Are you leaning towards any one mayoral candidate, or do you like what certain candidates have said?
I'm not leaning towards anyone at this time. I'm open to it. I think this is a very important decision. You know, you need a mayor now. New York City really needs a good mayor. We need to see real leadership in the city, and we need to see competence in a mayor, and we need it desperately. You talk about all these issues, crime. That's about leadership. That's about restoring trust with members of the community in New York City. That's about being able to talk to people and have credibility in talking to the community. It's about being able to talk to the police and having credibility with them. This is a challenging time to be an executive. And New York City has real local issues. The macro is good. The energy is up. People are coming back. I feel good about our reimagination plan. I feel good about our reopening plan. But Fiorello LaGuardia, safety, and a clean city. Crime is a problem. Number of homeless on the streets is a problem. We want tourists to come back. Yes, we have all sorts of great assets. The stories in the papers about crime can be a real impediment. And again, this has been going on for years, and there is no quick fix. So this mayor matters, and we need someone who both can communicate with the people of the city and bring the people of the city together and get things done. You need a level of competence that doesn't currently exist, and a level of credibility. So this is a big position to fill. Let's take one more.
In terms of the legislature, just to go back quickly, because we're talking about that reform that they're going to do for parole. There's the elder reform bill that they're probably conceivably could pass before the end of the year. And then there's another one about timely reform, fair and timely reform, which would basically look at an inmate's record in prison and then take into consideration the crimes they committed and how that impacted society. Those two bills, I'm just curious your position on those and whether you think those are things you'd sign.
First, they're apples and oranges, Zach. One, if you say, here's a template, anyone who fits this template is off parole, that doesn't allow you to look at the specifics and the specific risk that you're taking. A bill that says, look at the specifics of this person, what the crime was, what happened, what the defense was, what they've done since. I think decisions on the merits are preferable. But again, it depends on what winds up in a final bill, and you know as well as I, bills change until the last minute. All right, go Knicks, go Islanders, go Nets. Are you? I thought you, yes. Go ahead. I didn't even see you off to the side.
I'm here. Do you foresee that the federal government is going to establish a need for vaccination proof for foreigners coming to the U.S.? And if that's the case, would it clash with your plan of welcoming foreigners and maybe even vaccination tourism so that people would come here to New York to get the vaccine that the federal government could be asking to already have?
Yeah, good question. New York, our arms are open. We welcome international tourists. Today you can land at an airport. There is no testing, there is no quarantine, there's no checking. You come to New York. You want to participate in a venue, then you have to follow the guidelines of that venue. You want to go to Radio City Music Hall, they're going to want to see your vaccination card, etc. But coming to the city, we have no regulations. I have not heard that the federal government is going to establish any regulations in that regard. I've heard discussion about it, but I haven't heard anything definitive. If they did, then we would figure out what we need to do to make that process streamlined and facilitate it. Because we want and welcome tourism. We need it. We need it. It's a major engine for our economy. So anything we can do to facilitate it, we will. International. And then again, domestic travel, where I think you're going to see a lot more domestic travel, because in many ways, the COVID hangover, people are still concerned. They know the status of COVID in this country. What's the status of COVID in Europe and Germany and other countries? I'm not so sure. Might I go to another country and then have a problem getting back? So I think you're going to see a lot of domestic travel. And to them I say, New York has whatever you want to do. I've been in every state in the United States. Every state in the United States. I can't think of something that you would want to do that you can't do in New York. And then while you're here, you can do everything else. And it's safe, and it has great rules and regulations so you can feel safe for your family. And we have the best restaurants. And don't travel anywhere outside of New York. I'll be disappointed. Thank you, guys.